Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and Courtney, how are you?
I'm tired, but I'm fine overall.
Okay.
Um, I'm fine. I'm good. I don't know if you see, I have fixed my shining from the light into the TV problem
Yes.
by placing a blanket over it.
I like that the blanket is
Very
very much giving fall vibes, despite the fact that that is not
super
where we
cool.
are.
Well, I almost put uh like a weighted snuggie on there before I realized like I went to pick up this blanket and it was like 1,000 pounds and I was like that doesn't go on the TV. That's not.
No.
So now it's beside me in case I get cold because that would be the blanket I would cover up with when I was cold. But
Right.
trying to protect everyone from the reflections. But I'm good. I'm tired because I got my hair done yesterday at midnight. So for those of you watching, it's got some pink vibes going.
Very
I have
nice.
dark hair, so it's dark pink. Um, but Rachel loves me enough to stay up with me in the middle of the night and dye my hair and cut my bangs. And so that meant that I had to get up and drive her to work and get her oil changed because then she didn't have enough hours to sleep before she had to drive 4 hours to stay home. So all's fair in love and
Yeah.
war. But I am very tired from it now because I do not wake up at 8 a.m. anymore. That is not a morning time for me. Um,
I'm I'm like half done
but
with my day at 8 a.m. Just kidding. I'm not. I'm
yeah, everybody else is. So.
no. I mean, I'm only in my first class. I'm not that far done with my day. My day starts at 7:30, but my first class starts at 10 to 8.
My day has been starting at like a cool 9:20.
Okay.
Like I usually wake up sometime between 7 and 9. And then I usually have breakfast at like 9:30. And then I kind of like hang around, stare at the wall until I'm awake enough to work, which is usually like somewhere between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And then I just like work the rest of the day, do whatever needs to be done. It's really nice schedule. So 8 a.m. ain't it? So I'm also
Yeah.
not prepared for the upcoming week where I will be having to get up at 8 a.m. every morning and driving an hour to a conference.
Yeah.
So we'll see how I hang in there because that is not my life anymore. Um, but it's fine. I have coffee. How are you?
I'm okay. I swear, like when shit hits the fan, it
Just like that.
just like that. I don't even know. When shit hits the fan, it just like doesn't stop. So I obviously we were recording, you guys know by the end of last Thursday's episode of the podcast, we probably made little to no sense because we were far past the point of viably recording a podcast. And then I went to work Tuesday morning. And so when I got out of work, I was like, okay, I have to do some things. And one of those things was to get my oil changed. So everything was fine. I got my oil changed. And then I was driving to Dan's and my check engine light went on.
No, it's fixed now.
Right. It was like
They
I don't
fixed it. It shouldn't
I
come
was like
on.
I don't luckily one of my best friends at work, her husband has his own like little sensor reader thing that he plugs into the car. And so he came to check out my car and figure it out. And these motherfuckers, you know how like when you go to Valvoline and you get an oil change, they like um gently gaslight you into like buying other things for your car.
Mhm.
I always let them give me a new air filter. Because to be
It's
fair,
so expensive when you go
they're
through them, though.
I don't they're one the one for my car is only $25.
You can get it for like $12 from Amazon.
Yeah, but then I'd have to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it myself. And as with the doctor, I also avoid the car dealer, like the car shop as much as like I'm going to avoid my mechanic and my doctor as much as humanly possible. Both great men, don't want to see them because that means
Or
something's wrong.
mhm.
So whenever I go to Valvoline, I will get my air filter changed because I also like I don't change my oil until it's like 10,000 miles. So like it's not like I'm doing this every 5 weeks or anything.
Right.
So but then never fucking again because when they changed my air filter and they put the casing back in, they didn't put it back in. It wasn't sealed. And so my engine was pulling in oxygen from without the air filter.
So you're just like breathing in
So
smog.
all it took was me and Pat unhooking it and pushing, because it's like I got a lip onto it and you have to push it under the lip first. All we did was undo it, put it back in, and re-screw it down. It was the two of us in a parking lot with a single hand screwdriver and 100-mile-per-hour winds, and we did it better than Valvoline. So like,
so maybe you can do it.
Apparently I can do it by myself or just ask Pat to do it for me, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
also cheaper if you ask Pat.
Yeah. So that was like, I was like, can I just have one day? Just one day.
You know, I felt like
nothing goes wrong.
When I got the oil change place today, I felt like I was like the 100th customer or something. Because first of all, this like, God, she had to have been like freshman in college. Very, very young child was the one doing the like details, typing things in.
Yeah.
And then there was the guy, and they were all yelling at each other like cooks do in a kitchen, like Bay 1, Bay 2. And I'm like, there's a lot happening here. And I've been to Take 5 before. Like we go to Take 5, it takes 3 seconds, it's over. Yeah. And then the manager comes over and talks to me. They like gave me a bottle of water. I was there for less than 10 minutes. Like it was a whole situation. He told me that I had beautiful eyes. And
well, then, that's true, but wild.
Well, thank you. Yes. And then proceeded to make sure that everything was fine. And I told Rachel, because Rachel was like, go to this very specific one because they don't like screw you over there. And so that's the one I went to. And I mean, I will fight with them, but I was like, it is really early for me to get violent. So I didn't want to have to.
Is I literally told myself, I'm not letting them change my air filter this time. And then I got there and I was like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, well, I told her, I was like, don't worry, I won't agree to anything. And then they're like, the coolant's a little dirty. Should we change it? And I was like, oh, God, that might actually need to be changed. And then I was like, you know what? No, just top it off. And so I think her dad's going to do it this weekend. But I was like, it's $120.
No, that's wild. Like, that's right. And the thing is, the air filter, including labor, like you put it in and the labor, $25. That's fine. If they were like, this air filter, it starts at $57, I'd be like, fuck yourself. Yeah. But like for $25, I'm like, I got a full synthetic oil and an air filter and I spent $130.
Yeah. So I'm like, I spent like 106 on hers today for, But yeah, so then after he's telling me I have beautiful eyes and making sure everything was good, telling me they're going to send me an email for customer review. I didn't get the email. It's not my car. And then he's like, great job, team. And everyone's just like, woo. And I was like, what is happening? There is so much like morale going on right now. It was alarming for 10 a.m.
Mine was two guys who didn't want to be there. One of them, I don't think, spoke the entire time. Not because he didn't try to. Like he opened his mouth, words did not come out. It was weird. The other one looked like he was about 16, but then like the voice of like Luther Vandross came out of him when he spoke to me. And so I didn't really listen to any of the words he said because I couldn't figure out how that voice and that human went together, which is honestly why I ended up getting the the air filter, because I was just baffled.
Perplexed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. So strange times at the Take 5 on where was I? West Napoleon and Clearview. I was like, which corner was I at again?
Yeah, no, if you go to the Valvoline on Fashion Outlets Boulevard in Niagara Falls, New York, make sure they put your fucking air filter back in correctly.
So you're not breathing dust.
So Dan just texted me from downstairs to tell me that he loves me.
Ugh, gross.
So gross. In other positive news though, I don't have positive news. I need positive news. I don't know how to speak English.
That's okay.
That's okay. I don't know how to
speak English.
I don't know how to teach it either, so God.
Well, I'm picking what feels the lesser of the two slightly downers.
Okay.
I mean, I think this one is the most positive.
Things aren't going to get very good from here on out.
Things don't get better. But this seems nice. If you want to know what it's like to survive hell and still come out shining brighter than the sun, just look into the eyes of a woman who has survived intense damage and refused to allow it to destroy her softness. Nikita Gill, from her poem or book, Persephone Rising.
Love that.
When I saved this quote, I did know if it was a poem or book, and I do not remember now.
Mm.
But,
Yeah,
it's lovely.
so that is lovely. But since things don't get better, let's get into it.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine. Today we are talking about Stargate SG-1 Season 5, Episode 21, Meridian. It was rated 8.4 stars and came out on May 10th, 2002. The number one song, book, and movie have not changed since last
I thought you were about to tell me they were all the exact same, and I was like, that's not how that works.
No. They are all still, so we still have Ashanti, Mary Higgins Clark, and Spider-Man. Nothing has changed there. On this day, we have some very weird random assortment of news. TNA, which is a promotion league for professional wrestling, was founded. It is the second largest pro wrestling promotion under WWE. If you watch professional wrestling, you will know what TNA is. It was founded on this day.
I did watch professional wrestling, but I think it was only before 2002.
So then you didn't even watch WWE, you watched WWF because it was only 2 weeks before this that it became WWE.
I watched whatever came on at 2 to 3 a.m. after boxing. With my dad.
Great.
After a battle bots. This was our situation sometimes at night. There was a wrestling, there was a boxing, there was a battle bots.
I was very much into the pro wrestling world. My first true love was Triple H. Was never really into The Rock. He was not dirty enough.
Little too clean as a wrestler.
Not in his wrestling, like in his appearance. Like I liked the guys who looked disgusting. Like they looked like gross, sweaty men. The Rock was just suave looking. Well,
still is.
He is. And if any of you who listen or watch this podcast know my fiance, you will know
also not dirty looking.
No, not even like a little bit.
No. The exact opposite.
Yeah. Don't know what happened. This day also was the day that Robert Hansen, who was an FBI agent, was sentenced to life in prison for selling $4.1 million worth of secrets to Moscow.
That feels really detrimental.
It does.
Especially in the time being. Like
right. Like in 2024, I don't want people giving things to
No, I meant like 2002. Like we just had our big like showdown.
Oh no, for sure. But also in 2024, like that's not. And on this day, former President Jimmy Carter arrived in Cuba to meet with Fidel Castro, and he was the first president, whether sitting or otherwise, to meet him at all since the 1959 revolution. So
I may have known that fact. I did not know it was on this day.
Right.
I do think I knew that fact.
Yeah.
Which is not common for me with presidential knowledge before my time.
Right. So I mean, to be fair, I probably know more presidential knowledge before my time than during my time. I don't know what's happening.
Unfortunately, I am very aware of what is happening in the current last 10 to 15 years of presidential.
Sometimes I just watch The West Wing and go, that's so crazy. Could you imagine if Joe Biden did that? And then that's as far into politics as I get.
Well, if you ever start your podcast, I'll watch The West Wing and then I'll stop looking at politics. I'll just change.
It's okay. We'll just tell you everything you need to know on the podcast because Dan knows what's going on in the world. I don't.
Oh God, that's so much better. That's so much easier.
Yeah. This episode was directed by William Waring. That is a new name. That is a new name. Yeah.
What an episode to have a new director.
Right. He is known for It and It Chapter 2 as assistant director, and he
the new or old.
It and It Chapter 2, so the two new ones, not the miniseries.
Gotcha.
And then he's known, the other ones he's known for are Game of Thrones and Elf, but both of those he was in the camera and electrical department, not as a director.
But this was like his first thing he did then, that he was like known for.
This is actually his directorial debut.
Oh,
Nothing else he did as the sole director was prior to this episode. This is his first thing.
not bad for a debut.
It is not. He's gone on most of his actual directing credits, outside of like the camera department are in the Vancouver sci-fi world. So he's directed for Continuum, Dark Matter, Travelers, like that kind of thing. Like the Vancouver
Mhm.
sci-fi scene is his scene. He was born in Belfast, Ireland. Um, and he's actually most well known not for directing or even his own camera work, but for something he created for film camera. He developed something that is now called the Willy Cam after him, but it is a device that helps with the stabilization of moving camera pieces.
I
So,
actually knew that. I do
yeah.
not know a lot about camera work because I am not a camera person, but I know a lot of people who are camera people,
Yeah.
and I had
So,
heard of that.
yeah, so he is the one who developed that and the way to
Wow,
hold the cameras. So that is what he's known for.
fascinating.
There are about 747 William Warings on Instagram, none of which are him, so I could not find any other information about him. But
A for effort.
yeah, it was written by Robert C. Cooper and edited by Brad Rines, and the guest star is Mr. Corin Nemec. Except for that, I think his name is actually the Nemec. It's Nemac, but I read yesterday that I think it's actually pronounced Nemetz.
Can you spell it again?
Nemac. So I said Nemec, but I believe it's actually pronounced Nemetz.
Where is he from?
He is from Arkansas.
Nope, sure isn't. That is not where he is from.
That's where he was born. I don't know where his parents are originally from, but he was in fact born in Arkansas.
Alrighty.
He plays Jonas Quinn. He is known for Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Run, Hide, Fight. I Know My First Name is Steven, and Starving.
These are terrible titles of films or TV shows or
Yeah.
whatever they may be.
He was nominated for a Primetime Emmy for I Know My First Name is Steven, which was a mini series about something that I don't know anything about, but he was nominated for an Emmy for it. So like that's cool. He was born in Arkansas, but he currently lives in Tampa.
Did you happen to see what part of Arkansas?
Little Rock.
Little Rock. Okay.
Yeah.
I have family right outside of Little Rock.
But he currently lives in Tampa. One of his best friends is Brian Austin Green.
As is. I bet he's also friends with Robbie Williams then. Because
Maybe,
Robbie
yeah.
Williams went to high school and they were all in a band together with Brian Austin Green. That's what I learned from Mass Singer.
Love that. Yeah, he's been acting like forever, just in really small things that nobody really knows about. His real name is not Corin. It's, I think, like James William or something. Like it's very, very plain. But him making his like professional stage name Corin actually comes from a weird childhood nickname, and up until 1990, he was credited as Corky. So anything he was in the 80s, like when he was working with Brian Austin Green, was as Corky Nemitz.
I've heard of him. It has to, there can only be so many Corkies.
Yeah.
I do recall a Corky from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be him. I didn't watch a lot of Brian Austin Green. He was 90210, right? Yeah, so I didn't watch that one. But I've definitely heard of a Corky from the 80s. So
I'm just trying to see what are some other things that he was in that might Operation Dumbo Drop, which is a Disney
I didn't
movie.
watch that. I do know that, but I didn't watch it.
He was in The Stand, Stephen King's The Stand.
That's probably where I know him from.
He was in Half Dead Fred. Don't know what that one is, but
I think I know
name.
that one.
Yeah.
That was at 80s, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking Drop Dead Fred. I don't
Oh
know
no,
that
yeah,
one.
Drop Dead Fred is not the same thing.
No.
But trying to think, what was I reading about? Is David Faustino and Brian Austin Green are his like
Mhm.
best friends. David
Hmm.
Faustino was in Married with Children. Um, see, what was he in the 80s?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Oh wait, hold on. I don't care what he produced. Webster. Um, yeah, that is it. And I know my first name is Steven.
Hmm. Maybe I've just heard about him in passing from like
Maybe.
being a part of the 80s crew, you know?
Yeah,
Because like
Parker Lewis Can't Lose is the thing he was the most in. He was in like 75 episodes of that. And that he
I
was
didn't
with
watch that.
but he was with that was with Billy Jane and Troy Slayton and Melanie Chartoff. But
Mm,
I didn't see it either, so I don't really know. Um but yeah, I he was in 3 episodes of Beverly Hills 90210 though.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know him really from anything other than Stargate. So,
I definitely saw him in the stand. And
mm,
I would guess, so I watched it with my aunt
yeah,
Kellen, who listens. And
yeah,
I would guess she told me all about him from the 80s.
maybe. That makes sense.
So
Yeah. He is still pretty active on social media. He posted a video on his Instagram story yesterday about how cool chameleon toes are. And so like we're friends, but not really.
I love that. Did you immediately follow him?
No,
Incorrect.
it was incorrect. But I was also again trying not to ruin this episode for you.
They made fun of me last night because there's so many frogs here. And I love
Yeah.
frogs, you know. We talked
Yeah.
about this a lot. And so when we get home at night and there's frogs out, I then slowly follow each of the frogs until they have disappeared from my sight. And
Yeah.
Nick and Rachel would be like, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what
No,
are
I
you
would do the
doing?
same
I'm
thing.
like, the frog. I'm following. This one's a really big frog that I'm following. So
Um, so I have a lot of notes about this episode, but I feel that it's probably better to go through the episode first and then talk about it. Because it's kind of a big one.
kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I kept everything spoiler free for Courtney. She knew nothing going into this. I did not. I told her it was going to be a big episode, but I didn't even tell her what it was. And then I came home today and I said, Mom, recording is going to be rough tonight. And she said, Why? I said, We're finishing season 5. And she goes, Oh God. I said, Yeah.
It's a rough one. I have my
Yeah.
emotional support lipstick, so I'm ready.
So we start the episode with SG-1 arriving back from a planet, and immediately Daniel is rushing to the infirmary.
And I was like, well, he's not dead because he's still in more Stargate.
And he's been exposed to radiation. And Janet asks how much, and they tell Hammond the amount that it was, and the amount that he was exposed to was in fact lethal. And then we get the credits. And Dan, who knew that this is the episode that Daniel dies in, said, Wow, they did not even break it to you gently. I was like, Nope.
But I was still like above board. Like I knew this was going to be a big episode, but I was like,
Yeah.
crazy's going to happen. And I know you said like you made it seem like the team was going to change, but I was like, I know he's in more Stargate, so he doesn't die. Wrong. Not how that works, apparently. But so
Yeah.
I wasn't like I was concerned, but I wasn't like past the
Well,
point of all hope at the end.
yes, right, which I totally thought was where you were going to be. I've been
Mhm.
nervous because all season we've been talking about how Daniel's character kind of hasn't been progressing the way other people have been and how it's been frustrating to watch, which we will talk more about. But then a couple of weeks ago, when Doug was on and he showed the DVD box, and Daniel is the one who's missing from the DVD box, I was like, okay. That is a hint that I didn't mean for her to have.
He also covered it up and he was like, because he was like, oh, they made an error and they didn't put Daniel in the box.
No,
And
well, and that is because not because Daniel should be on the box, but because
right.
we both feel very strongly that
Yeah.
Daniel should be on the box over Jonas, but it wasn't. It's Jonas Quinn who's on the box with it, and so I was like, that.
But I also knew that they had made other mistakes on like printings of the boxes. So I was like, sure, it's just a mistake. Like it's another one. No, like
No,
went over my head. I was like,
yeah.
yeah, they messed up again. Sure.
Um, so after the credits, everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens, and so the rest of SG-1 is briefing Hammond on the mission. And this episode is a little tricky to talk about because it the timeline is not consistent in the episode.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flashbacks or like people telling stories, but instead of listening to them tell a story, it shows us the story.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which is nice. I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
But it does make it difficult to talk about.
Yeah. So the mission was in a country called Kelowna, which was on a planet, which this is interesting because it's one of the first times that they admit that there are like not always only one civilization on a fucking planet. But so they're in Kelowna and it's at a tech stage that is equivalent to the US in the 1940s, but they're like super eager to help the team. Like they're like, okay, like you give us stuff, we'll give you stuff. Like this is going to be like a legit partnership where people are actually like learning and exploring together. And despite the fact that we have advanced technologically rapidly, when you're comparing this to the fact that this is the first civilization that is on par with the US in the last 100 years versus like either alien and light years beyond anything we can understand or like still in the Stone Age, it's seems like it could be a good idea.
Yeah.
Back on Kelowna, the team meets Jonas Quinn, who is the advisor to their like basically president. I forget what the term that they use for what their leadership is called, but it's the equivalent of their president. And he's showing them around their secret research facility. And turns out Jonas is their ethical advisor who has several degrees, including from their highest like college there, including social studies. And if they weren't screaming, "Hi, I'm the new Daniel," it was not.
So what? I'm not over this yet. So what DVDs were in that box set?
All of them.
Like what?
That whole, it's everything from the beginning of Stargate to all three series and all those shows. So the box was all of Stargate SG-1, all 10 seasons.
Does feel like it should be Daniel though. This is like half.
Yeah.
Like this is okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. Continue.
So they are discussing possible partnership with the Kelowans. They also say that Jonas and Daniel got along very, very well. Obviously.
Sure, yeah.
Daniel would get along with like a tea cozy, and Jonas is literally the same person. So like it makes sense. Then Jonas introduces them to Thomas or Tom, because we have
It's Thomas, right?
Thomas. It is Thomas. But I just don't like the fact that it's Jonas and Thomas because it just makes me feel like we don't have any idea how to write names. That was why it bothers me. Not the spelling. I don't give a shit about weird spelling. I'm just like, we couldn't come up with anything better than rhyming names. And he's a physicist on the project, and the project that they're doing on this planet is to use a substance called naquadria to make a bomb. And basically,
not naquadah.
It is not naquadah. It is much more chemically strong than naquadah. They were able to find both naquadah and naquadria on this planet. They claim that the bomb was only ever going to be used in self-defense, but Hammond and SG-1 are like, that doesn't. It's giving very H-bomb vibes, and we're not really thrilled with that.
Yeah.
And apparently, while the rest of the team was touring the city and meeting other government people, Daniel stayed behind to try to talk them out of the bomb making. But the Coloans are now claiming that Daniel tried to sabotage their research, and that's what caused whatever radiation poisoning Daniel now has. And if they say that if he survives the radiation poisoning, he's going to have to go back to Kelowna and face charges. Then we go check in on Daniel, who is telling Jack that he will probably die in the next 10 to 15 hours. And Jack's like, listen, like, we could find another cure. Like, we don't know the answer, but we're not the only ones out there. And Daniel is like, that is not the way to handle things. I am one life. Like, my life is not more important than anybody else's. Like, you cannot waste time and resources trying to save me.
And like, he's right, but also we're just trying to get the Asgards on the phone at this point. So like,
Right. This has been like 3 episodes of trying to call them.
Right. So just here's another reason to call them. Like,
Right.
So it's not really even about you at this point.
Except for that it's for sure definitely about you.
Well, for sure. But like, that's the thing is like, you know, we still wanted them on the phone regardless. So why not ask them about it while we're there?
Jack asks him what really happened on the planet, and he's like, there was just an accident, and the scientists knew it would be better to blame me than to actually like face up to what they did. So they like let me take the fall for it. And it turns out that Daniel is pretty sure the Goa'uld tried to build basically the same bomb 10,000 years ago, and that is what and almost blew up the whole planet, and that's why their Stargate was buried in the first place.
Yep, good times.
Good times.
So we are going many years back.
Yeah, I mean,
try and build
right. So think the Goa'uld, who make technology that we currently in 2002 America can't understand, are gonna let or couldn't do this, but let's let the 1940s like World War II bomb makers make it. Oppenheimer would be proud. So
I still haven't watched that.
Me either.
Love it.
I just know the real person. It's not, I mean, not personally. I've never met her.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have doubted you.
Yeah, I don't know when he died. Somehow I feel like it's probably not feasible.
Probably post us being born.
No, it's not. He died in 1967. That's before my dad was born.
God, I thought he would be like late 90s.
No, he died in February of 67. My dad was born in March of 67. It was before my dad was even born. So no, I do not personally know J. Robert Oppenheimer.
You know, maybe came to you in a dream. Who's to say?
Who's to say? So Hammond has been trying to reach the Asgard and Jacob, but they have not been able to get anybody. And Jack is like, well, I know where there's we know where there's a sarcophagus. And Hammond is like, yes, but we don't want to put Daniel back in the sarcophagus. And Jack's like, he's already done it a dozen times. What's the 13th?
If it's death or sarcophagus, what's the difference? You know,
right? But
I'm with Jack on this one.
Hammond is like, I understand how you are feeling. You are not the only person who is emotionally upset by this, but you have to realize the number of casualties that will be required to get a sarcophagus here. And A, as a leader, he can't do that. And B, would Daniel ever be okay with that? If he survived, no, like there's no way. So Sam, while this is all going on, Sam has been doing research because otherwise she will have a mental breakdown. And she figures out that the radiation and the explosion that hurt Daniel, and she's determined that the element is more powerful than any of our current nuclear reactors, and like we need to get our hands on it. We need the Nequadria. It will save us. We could use it to build defense shields that are like basically akin to what the Goa'uld motherships currently have on them. So Hammond then orders Jack to deliver a letter implying that they don't condone Daniel's actions, but that they're not saying that he didn't do it because they want to be able to keep the door open for diplomatic negotiations. Because at this point, They are convinced that Daniel will not survive. There's nothing they can do about it, but they don't want that to then mean they lose out on the ability to potentially have the Nequadria in the
Right.
future. And Jack's about to blow a gasket. He's like not fucking having this at all.
Yeah, he's like,
Um,
we're not about to ruin Daniel's legacy if this is the last thing that he does.
yeah. So Jack
Which
goes
is like
back.
fair, but also we are negotiating diplomatic relations. And like,
Right. But has Jack ever really been thrilled about the way we do diplomatic negotiations? Not really. That's usually when he sits one out. So
probably for the
um
best.
Jack goes back to see Jonas and tell him that like and tells him like this is what Hammond sent me for, this is why I'm here. And he goes, but I'm not gonna give you that letter because fuck you. If you cannot go in there and stand up for Daniel, he's like, this will not be the last thing he does on record. They will put him down as a criminal over my dead body. I fuck all of this, basically.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not gonna let you do that. And Jonas kind of cracks because he's like, I couldn't clear Daniel's name even if I did want to. Um, because I'm alone and all the other scientists are dead and we need this weapon to be able to work because it's the only way to ensure peace and freedom for our people. And then Jack brings up, again, since we're talking so much about the atomic bomb in the 1940s, Jack brings up the idea that a weapon of that capability only ensures freedom once you've used it. The only reason people were afraid of America and the atomic bombs were because we dropped one. Like, it was not, we could have kept saying we had it for hundreds of years without it actually like holding any
Yeah.
weight, but they saw what it did. Like, and Jeff's like, that you don't understand the implication of that.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, we want it because we want to make shields, not weapons. And so then we have a really upsetting scene where Sam and Janet are watching Daniel slowly decay. And Sam's like about to cry. And Janet says that it's only going to get worse from here. And that honestly, she would never do it because it's against everything she believes in as a doctor. But Daniel would be better off if she pulled the plug.
Yeah. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is so like intense.
Yeah. Um, so Sam decides she's going to take matters into her own hands, and she goes and gets Kendra's healing device from uh, Thor's homeworld, or not homeworld,
Mhm.
but Thor's people's, whatever the fucking name of the planet where we first met Thor and his hammer and his chariot and all that stuff. I cannot remember the name of that planet.
Well, you know, I for sure can.
um, so she has Kendra's healing device and she takes it to Daniel to like try to use it and heal him, but like it only makes him have a seizure faster because she's not really capable of using it. Um, and then we suddenly cut to Daniel, who finds himself walking around base by himself with this weird glowy light all around him, like a fucking scene in Touched by an Angel. And
Just like touched by an angel. Oh my God. It was like, ugh.
and there's this glowing woman who's like, your fate is in your own hands. And I was like, all right, so now it's Touched by an Angel meets Brave meets Daniel Jackson. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. I was like, who is this woman? Because she didn't look like this before, right?
No, we've never seen what she looked like as in her human
Okay.
form. No, 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 no.
That's what I thought, but I was like, surely I would remember that if it happened.
Yeah. So Daniel is in the infirmary and he's getting worse. And then Jack goes to see him. All these fucking little goodbye scenes are too much. He says that he will make sure, do everything he can to make sure that Daniel doesn't take the fall. And then Daniel's like, why would you do that? And he's like, you have been the biggest pain in my ass for the last 5 years. Um, but I have grown to admire you so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then Daniel realizes that the glowing ghost lady is Oma Desala. And she tells him that he can complete the journey he began at Keb and reach enlightenment and ascend. And then she continues to speak in riddles because that's what she does. And he's like, dude, come on, I'm dying. I don't fucking have time for this. Um,
She does not care though. She's like, no,
no,
no, no. This is the way we do this.
yes, this is the way. So then Jack is kind of moping because he doesn't know how to handle it because he doesn't have feelings, but his best friend is dying. And so, like, it sucks, even though he hates his best friend. It's a very weird dynamic. And he sees that Jonas Quinn has showed up on base. And he's come with the Nequadria and he stole it and he brought it because Jack was right. He told his government leaders the truth about everything that happened, and they were so happy about the power of the bomb that he realized that they were never in it for defending themselves.
Mhm.
And that Daniel had been right and Jack had been right and he couldn't do it. So we get a flashback to Jonas telling Daniel about how all he wants to do is know what's on the other side of the Stargate and like learn about the rest of the universe and everything. And Daniel basically repeats everything the Asgard said to the Towery, to like the people of Earth, about what happens when you get a technology that's bigger than what you're able to handle.
Mhm.
And then we see that they were testing the device to try to see if the bomb was working, and it started to like actually explode and react. And everything was going out of control, and it was gonna probably destroy the entire facility. And Daniel shot through a window and threw himself in and pulled the core out of the thing to stop the reaction. But he obviously did it with his bare hands and no suit on or anything. And
Yeah.
yeah. And Jonas tells the story, and he's so upset that his government can't recognize like what Daniel did and how many people Daniel saved that he like came back to Earth because he didn't want to be any part of it. We go back to Daniel's meditation journey, and he's talking to Oma about how he like doesn't know what the point of his life has been.
Oh my God, this was the worst scene. This was the worst part of all of it. Where he's like, I'm a failure. I have not done anything right. And I was like, you have done so many things. You
No,
have done a lot of things wrong. But
this one was bad, but the next one where it goes back to her and he starts listing all the things that he
yeah.
can't. Yeah, this is not just like a big moment because we lose Daniel. It's like fucking emotional as shit.
Yeah.
So then Sam is saying her goodbyes to Daniel. And this one was when I really could not handle the episode anymore because she's telling him all the reasons why he's like her best friend. And she goes, and then you realize that like it's always too late when you tell people how you really feel. And that one hit me in a place that I am not able to talk about on the podcast, but it is.
Yeah, I'm watching this, and at first I was like, "Are you saying you're in love with Daniel?" And I was like, "That's not what you're
It's
saying."
saying no.
But
She's saying she loves him. She doesn't mean that
Yeah.
she's in love with him, but she's saying that she loves him and that she
Yes.
never told him that in real words before.
Just the first listen. I listened to this 3 times. The first listen through,
Oh yeah.
that was like,
the first listen
wait a
through it.
minute, Sam.
Yeah, the first listen through it almost feels like she's venting to Daniel about how she can't tell Jack how she feels about him, and then you're like,
That was my second listen through, is what I thought.
Yeah.
My first listen through, I thought she was telling Daniel she was in love with him. The second listen through, I was like, oh, she's telling Daniel she's in love with Jack. The third was like, she just tells Daniel that she loves him. And he's
right.
Like, that was, I literally had to go through and watch multiple times to get
Yeah.
to like the end of the progression.
Yeah, and then we get another scene where after listening to Sam, Daniel tells Oma Desala tells Daniel that he will never reach enlightenment because right now, until he believes that he's worthy of reaching enlightenment, which Daniel having self-confidence couldn't be.
But also Daniel's like, yeah, let's just say that's true and keep going. And I was like, I don't
not
think that's how it works.
No. But and at one point during this thing, she says my favorite riddle because it's the one that she said in Cab, and she says it again, and she says, "If if you recognize that the candle is fire, then the meal is already cooked. And Daniel's like, yeah, you already fucking said that. I don't get what it means. But she's basically saying as soon as he understands that all he has to do is accept it, then he's already there. But he
Yeah.
can't do that because he still thinks he has to do something.
Hmm.
Um, and then fucking Teal'c comes to say goodbye to Daniel. And yeah, he gives him a statue and he says like the most beautiful thing about how the Goa'uld will have lost their greatest warrior and Teal'c will have lost one of his greatest friends. And it was fucking it was rough. And so then Oma Dasala and and Daniel continue talking about all the reasons why Daniel thinks that he's not good enough. And he's like, still to this day, blaming himself for Share's death. He's blaming himself
Oh
for
my God, yeah.
Sarah. He's blaming himself for Sarah. He says every time that we took out a Goa'uld, another one took its place. I might have done good things, but in the ultimate balance of the universe, I haven't changed it a step in the right direction. Like he's just like, whew. And
Imposter syndrome.
yeah, that's 100% what it is. And she's like, you don't know. She's like, everyone around you is telling you all the reasons why. Like everyone here, like listen to what they're saying when they say goodbye to you. Not one of them is like just gonna miss you because they're like sad. They're like talking about how you made everything in the world better. Like, how do you not see that? And he's like, well, all these things happen. And she's like, but you have no control over any of those things. She's like, there's only one thing in the entire world you control. Well, no, first she says that the only thing that matters is um, your intentions and the strength of your convictions. But then she says that the only thing you control is whether you're good or whether you're evil.
Which is true.
Yeah. Um,
Very profound.
then we find out that Jonas is afraid to go home because he thinks that he's going to be considered a traitor. And he's like, just promise me that if you do ever make this shield, you will like let my government know because I can't have this be for nothing. Um, and they say yes, but then the gate activates, and you're like almost afraid somebody's gonna come for Jonas after all this nonsense.
Oh, I thought for sure it was Thor. I was
It's
just like, it's Thor coming to save Daniel. That's what I thought.
it was just Jacob, which is not. I mean, Jacob is
Just Jacob.
just Jacob. He's nobody special. No, it's just yeah. But uh, he comes through and they tell him everything that happened and he decides to and he obviously has a little bit more ability with the hand device than Sam did. And so he's using the
Mhm.
hand device. And after initial scan, Selmach comes through and says that like he doesn't know if he's going to be able to save Daniel because it is bad. It is very, very bad. And even if he saves him, he will probably never be
Be the
100%.
same, yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, you have to try. And Daniel is like, I can feel that they're trying to heal me. And she's like, okay. And he's like, but I don't think I want them to. He realizes in that moment that he can do more good by continuing on the journey to enlightenment rather than being a person. And she's like, okay, well then, yeah, have to stop them.
That's probably true because he has, while he has done a lot of really good things, he has also messed up a lot of things as a human. So he probably will be better in this
Yeah,
spiritual world, but I still hate it.
yeah. Um, and then so he, in his spiritual form, touches Jack on the shoulder and asks Jack to tell Jacob to stop so he can ascend. Um,
Oh my God, that was the worst scene out of all of them.
yeah. And so then Jack says they have to let him go. And they're like, but why? And he's like, it's what he wants. Like, you have to. And so then Daniel dies. And then the weird tentacled spirit ascends out of his body. And they have a scene where Jack says goodbye one last time and he says, what's going to happen next? And he said, I don't know. He said, where are you going? And he said, I don't know. And then he leaves.
I feel like he's Opa.
Oma and Opa.
Yeah. That's all I could think at the end. I was like, now Daniel's Opa.
But he thanks Jack for everything before he goes. So I'm like, sorry, I'm crying.
I don't care for this. I don't care for this because I hold on to a lot of hope because I know that he's in more Stargate episodes.
How do you
He's in
know?
like because he's in one of the other seasons, isn't he?
But also he's Thor.
Oh yeah.
He
But his
plays.
face is on one of the different ones. Comes back. He's like his face is on Stargate again.
But remember, sometimes the things on Amazon don't make any sense. Like the covers that they use for things. I will just say that the covers on Amazon don't make sense.
I do know that. But
Um, I don't know if my trivia is gonna help or hurt you now, though, if that's really where you're feeling. 'Cause my stuff is a lot of interviews with the cast.
does he not come back ever? Like his face is never back?
I I'm gonna read you the interviews with the cast. Um, well, I have one quick trivia that is about the episode unrelated to Daniel dying, and that is that the Nequadria core explosion is loosely based on the demon core from the Las Alamos laboratory that exploded in 1945, and how the radiation poisoning from that worked. Um, so Michael Shanks in an interview talked about how this episode had the really difficult job of addressing Daniel leaving, but also introducing a new character. So there, not everything in it was super well handled. And uh, the powers that be, he calls it. So the producers basically had gotten so much backlash over Martouf dying that they tried to cover it up, basically. So this episode is not nearly as tragic as it actually is because they were afraid of what fans would say. So like Daniel died and they were just like, oh, just kidding. He like ascended. It's fine. We don't have to deal with it. Purely because of how much hate they got over Martouf dying. So that's why this episode doesn't feel nearly as final as it is supposed to feel. Um, which I was reading that and I was like, well, Courtney did get unnecessarily upset about Martouf dying. So
I was very upset
yeah.
about Martouf dying. That is very fair.
So like basically they tried to cover their asses and make Daniel like as not dead as they could. Um, so they didn't give fans a chance to mourn. Like it wasn't a season finale. It
Which is not
wasn't.
fair. Yeah, it was not the
It's
finale.
not the finale. It is bundled up in an introduction of a new character. Like it's basically bungled because they were afraid of the backlash.
And I will also tell you on that note, I care and know 0% about Jonas right now.
Right.
Like I had no idea until you said in the beginning of all of this that he was like the new like I understand that he is a counterpart to Daniel.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was gonna be like be the new Daniel.
Well, they don't make it
him.
they don't make it explicitly clear in the episode really. They like hint at it, like basically saying, oh, like he gets along with Daniel, he has all these degrees, and then him being like, I can't go home. Like they hint at it, but they never say that.
I did think that he was going to be more involved, but I thought he was going to be more like a Jacob, where like we
Right.
see him a good bit, or like
Yeah.
a Braytak. Like we see him a good bit, but he's
Yeah.
not. I know he's going to be like the team.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh, and he said that he didn't really love the dual storyline, but he didn't speak up because his philosophy as an actor is if he doesn't have a better idea, he's not going to talk about it. Like he doesn't point
that is
out
a
things.
really good.
Yeah, he's like, I don't
way to
point
be.
out things that I don't like unless I have a better idea. If I have a better idea, I will give feedback. But if my feedback is just I don't like it, what that's not helpful to anyone.
Right. Yes, that is very fair.
Yeah. And it was really sad because his last day on set was actually like only with Corin. It was the scenes that he did with Corin Nemec, the Jonas scenes, were his last day on set. Like, so he wasn't even with anybody else on his last day. Um, but so his second to last day was scenes with just Amanda and Chris. And he said that he felt like the dying guy convincing his surviving relatives that they'd be okay because the two of them took it so badly.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna cry.
Um, I
Ugh,
also have an interview with Amanda about it. Um,
it's fine. I'm already crying. Go ahead.
yeah, and so they basically filmed all the scenes of people coming in to say goodbye to Danielle at the same time. So when she walked into or walked out of the infirmary, Chris Judge walked in and the cameras just kept rolling. And they were just in a hallway with an empty bed because at that point Danielle was like totally bandaged up. So Michael Shanks wasn't even like there. It was just an empty bed. And she felt like it was so symbolic of what was happening that she just like laid in Chris Judge's arms and was crying and was like, Teal'c, we're gonna lose him. And they filmed all of it and then cut it for time.
Like any of this.
Um, and then my last interview is with Joseph Mosey on his blog. And he said that like when Brad Wright came to him and said that Michael wanted out, because Michael Shanks asked to be written out. He did not want to be on the show anymore. He felt that Daniel's character wasn't growing or developing enough and he needed
Which is fair.
which is fair, but he wanted out. There wasn't any hard feelings. He just felt like it wasn't fulfilling for him anymore. And it hurt to say goodbye to the cast and everything, but Joseph was genuinely surprised because he didn't realize that that had ever been an issue. But he was like, but I also, it was my first season. I was the new guy. Like, of course, I'm not the one he's telling he feels.
I forgot this was his first season.
Yeah. So this is his first season as executive producer. He's like, of course, I'm not the one he's coming to complaining about. Like,
Yeah.
he's been with Brad for 5 years. Like, if Brad tells me that Michael wants out, I believe him. And all Brad did was promise Michael, his character, a memorable farewell. And there was no bad blood, and they left an open door. And Michael said that he literally on his last day in the office, Brad said that there was always going to be room for his character to come back, and he just said, "I appreciate it," and left. There was no conversation about him ever coming back on the show. Um, and he said, but
But he is still Thor.
Yes.
So he still did voiceover stuff, even if he wasn't like Daniel.
Right. Well, but also we don't know what the fuck's happening to Thor right now. So
okay, but that storyline is not anywhere near over. Like we have to at least
we have to at least wrap that up. Exactly. But fans, however, were far less understanding. And as soon as rumors started getting out that Daniel was gonna leave, people lost their fucking minds. And and Joseph didn't understand why there was so much like weird, like why people felt like Daniel wasn't growing or anything. And he like was watching back on the show and he said he rewatched a bunch of season 4 and season 5 and was like, I felt like everything was fine and I didn't understand it because and Joseph said, because in his mind as the producer of the show, the heart of the show is the team and SG-1 and what they're doing. But for fans who have been there since the movie, the heart of the show is Daniel and Jack and their relationship was not there anymore in season 5. And so people were really upset about it. And so there was nowhere to go except for to do something drastic. And Michael wanted out. Yeah.
That's fine, I guess. Man, you thought my face was pale before we started recording.
And you thought my face was red before we started crying. I'm like,
I've recovered for now.
Yeah, so I guess who was your MVP?
No, I don't feel any ways about any people. Everyone's punched. I don't know. I guess my MVP would have to be it's gonna be Michael Shanks specifically.
I mean, I'm Daniel, obviously, but yeah. So I guess who do you want to punch in the face?
I don't know. I guess I want to punch the leaders of Kelowna who are thrilled about this bomb they're making.
That's totally fair. I kind of want to punch Oma DeSala, not because she did anything wrong, but just because like she took Daniel away from us.
Yeah, and also so cryptic.
Yeah, so hard to understand.
Um,
I don't need to fortune cookie speak. Um, what do you think is going to happen in the season finale?
God, nothing. Nothing. The whole show is over now. It's ended. Ugh, I need to unplug my laptop. It's like panicking. Um, I don't know. There's another episode.
Yeah,
What are they gonna do? What's left? I guess they're gonna integrate Jonas since he's being added on. So I guess we'll have more Jonas. Um, everyone's gonna cry. I don't know. Like that's what I'm gonna do. We'll just cry and then meet Jonas better. And I don't know. Maybe Thor will come back. That's what I said last episode. So I'll just
yeah,
say maybe we'll see him again, especially if like Michael Shanks is trying to wrap up this season. Maybe he's gonna close out with Thor. I don't know.
yeah.
God help
Um,
me if they take Thor away too, because two of Jack's besties, I don't even know. I don't even know.
my little sneak peek is that we will address the people who keep not answering their phone. So
That tracks.
yeah.
I feel like, I mean, they have to, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
been a lot of
how else
episodes.
could you wrap up the season with
Yeah.
so yeah. Also I have to figure out how to get it to you, like how we would go about watching this because I want to do it before the season wrap up. But there is a special feature on the DVD called A Tribute to Daniel Jackson, and it's like
No,
an in
I'm not watching
memoriam.
it. I'm not watching it. I bet it's on YouTube. Did you look?
I didn't look. I don't know if it is. But I also don't want you to look because I don't want you to like search for things and see like potential
Okay, well, you
spoilers.
look and you
Yeah.
know,
Um,
and you send me a link of it. So I bet it's on
okay.
YouTube though,
Yeah, but
or
there's
the
yes.
depths of Reddit. It'll be somewhere.
But yeah, so there's a special feature on the DVD called A Tribute to Daniel Jackson. Um, I found one, but I have to double check if it's the same one that's on the DVD before I send it to you. Because sometimes they're just fan edits of people being like, I love him. It's not the
Yeah.
same. So, yeah. So, I would say rest in peace, but I don't really know if that counts if you become a weird, enlightened alien being.
I don't think
So,
so.
uh, yeah. Sorry, we told you from the beginning it was not going to get better.
It just got worse than I thought it was gonna get.
Yeah. Um, if you would like to write a eulogy for Dr. Daniel Jackson or um, give us anything that will make us not cry on camera ever again, um, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on all of the social media at deathandaliens. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
I guess you can follow me at CE Cloud 13.
And with that, we will see you for
Never again.
well,
That's the end.
yeah, goodbye. Never can't we can't come back from this. All right. Bye.